Honourable Members of Parliament, participants from friendly countries, Chairman, University Grant Commission, Chief of Defence Staff and Service Commanders, Vice Chancellor, Gotabaya Defence University, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, military officers, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to address all of you at the opening ceremony of the 5th annual symposium organized by the Gotabaya Defence University. The theme for this year's symposium is ensuring national security through reconciliation and sustainable development. At this important moment in our nation's history, this topic is the most appropriate one. A little over 3 years ago, Sri Lanka emerged from a 3 decades-long terrorist conflict waged by the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, better known as LTTE. Today, the country is experiencing a national revival that will restore it to its rightful place on the world stage. The challenge before the government is to facilitate this resurgence whilst taking necessary steps to ensure long-term peace and stability by upholding national security. The humanitarian operation that liberated Sri Lanka from the LTT's brutal terrorism was centered on restoring complete normalcy to the nation. It was the intention of the government to bring back peace and stability for all our people. Now that this objective has been achieved, it is vital that the country moves forward and fully exploits the many opportunities afforded by peace. All Sri Lankans, irrespective of their ethnicity, religion, or affiliations, must gain the confidence that they can lead lives of dignity, equality, and fulfillment within a supportive, dynamic, and multicultural environment. To achieve this vision, the government is presently working hard to achieve national reconciliation and sustainable development. In this regard, it is important to fully appreciate the many challenges that face the government in the post-war situation. Nearly 300,000 civilians had been taken out of their homes by the LTT for use as a human shield during its retreat towards its strongholds. To prevent the advance of the military, the LTT had created obstacles by laying mines and improvised explosive devices in the towns and villages it left behind. Because of this, the displaced civilians could not go back to their homes soon after the war. Looking after the IDPs, demining and reconstructing their towns and villages, and facilitating their speedy resettlement were all major challenges for the state. Another very significant issue was dealing with the nearly 12,000 LTT cadres who surrendered to security forces during the humanitarian operation. Resolving these issues as quickly as possible was essential to the restoration of normalcy. Apart from appreciating the challenges faced, it is equally important to understand the overall context in the North and East at that time. The areas under LTTE control had been in virtually isolation from the rest of Sri Lanka for decades. The democratic process had been subverted, law and order had been undermined, the civil administration had been under duress, and ordinary people had enjoyed little control over their destinies. Although the LTT had maintained the trappings of a state apparatus in the areas it controlled, it was an illusion designed to disguise territory held under gunpoint. Economic development in these regions had also lagged far behind the rest of the country while under LTT control. Although successive governments had continuously supplied services including healthcare, education, and utilities to these regions over the years, the LTT did not allow these resources to be used properly. The non-governmental organizations supposed to be engaging in development work in these areas were also ineffective. As a result, virtually no economic progress took place. The infrastructure, including the transportation networks, power supply, irrigation canals, and telecommunication services, etc., were badly underdeveloped. Developing the regions formerly under LTT control was the primary challenge that the government faced in the post-war situation. The Eastern Province, which was liberated from the LTT in July 2007, was brought back to virtual normalcy even while the humanitarian operation was continuing in the north. The various groups that had operated in the east and carried arms for their protection against the LTT were speedily disarmed and encouraged to join the political mainstream. Elections were held in the Eastern Province as early as May 2008, giving the people the ability to exercise their franchise without fear. This restoration of their fundamental democratic rights was a significant accomplishment in a country that was still at war. In terms of economic development, the government launched several initiatives under the Eastern Dawn program to restore infrastructure such as roads, bridges, irrigation canals, and power supply. It also took several steps to revitalize productive sectors including crop agriculture, livestock, fisheries, and tourism in this province. Within a remarkably short period of time after being liberated, the Eastern Province emerged as a fast-developing, vibrant part of Sri Lanka. The newfound confidence that the people in this province enjoyed was shown in how quickly they resumed their normal activities and adopted new pursuits. The revival of cultivation activities increased the acreage of productive paddy fields in the province and significantly increased the qualities of paddy being brought to market in the country. With the progressive removal of restrictions at sea, the fisheries industry increased its productivity very quickly and is presently thriving. The revival of tourism brought in large numbers of tourists, and the Eastern Province has already attracted a lot of fresh investments from various sectors. The status that the province now enjoys was virtually unimaginable when the East was liberated 4 years ago. To effect a similar revival in the Northern Province, His Excellency the President appointed a presidential task force for reconstruction and resettlement immediately after the war ended. However, it was understood that the situation in the North was inherently more complicated than that of the East. The LTT had been in control over much of the territory in the North for many years, thereby leading to the suppression of its natural potential for a much longer period. This impacted both the psyche of the people of the North as well as the degree to which the province needed restoration. The problems caused by the thousands of anti-personnel mines, anti-tank mines, and improvised explosive devices laid by the LTTE over large extents of land made this already bad situation much worse. In total, it was suspected that mines had been laid in approximately 5,000 square kilometers of land in total. Demining such a vast area was a very difficult challenge that the government undertook with the help of many foreign organizations, including the Danish Demining Group, the UK-based Mines Advisory Group, the Indian Sarvatra Group, and Horizon Group, and several others. The Sri Lankan army was given the responsibility of demining the largest area of land, which comprised of almost 1,500 square kilometers, including 1,380 square kilometers in the densely mined north. The demining program was carefully planned and executed. Priority areas were chosen to maximize efficiency and to enable the speedy return of the civilians to the homes they had been displaced from. As such, the first priority was to demine the towns and villages. The second priority was to demine the agricultural areas such as paddy fields and plantations. The third priority was to clear the forested areas. I am pleased to note that as of today, the two main priority areas have been almost completely cleared. To date, 469,275 anti-personnel mines, 1,399 anti-tank mines, and 388,963 unexploded ordnances have been recovered. It is because of the large number of mines and IEDs planted by the LTTE that demining continues in some areas to this day. These are places where heavy fighting took place during the last stages of the war and where the concentration of mines is at its highest. It is expected that these areas too will be completely cleared in the very near future. With the completion of demining in each area, reconstruction was expedited so that the infrastructure and facilities that had been long neglected under the LTT occupation could be developed. The renovation of houses and construction of new housing units was one of the government's first priorities in terms of reconstructions, since it enabled the expediting of the resettlement program. The army has renovated over 6,000 houses and constructed nearly 7,000 new housing units in this region. Under a grant sponsored by the Government of India, 43,000 new houses will also be constructed. The pilot project for this program was launched in 2010, and 1,000 houses have already been built and handed over to the beneficiaries. Through these ongoing programs, the housing stock in the north will be greatly increased and improved over the next few years. Infrastructure development was another key concern. In a similar initiative to the Eastern Dawn program, the government launched a program entitled the Northern Spring to undertake large development projects in the north.